Well, apparently Marvel's Spider-Man is bad. Some people are going as far as to say that it absolutely positively sucks. So first and foremost, I want to say that this type of sentiment seems to have bubbled up over the last few days since Marvel's Spider-Man 2's appearance during the PlayStation Showcase, where in my opinion, they absolutely knocked it out of the water. And yes, pun intended there, and we'll talk about one of the main criticisms in just one moment. But I've heard a very small amount of people, but they're certainly making a lot of noise about the fact that Marvel's Spider-Man 2 looks bad. And it really does come down to looking bad. That really seems to be the common thread. So let's begin with the first one, and that is the symbiote suit or the black suit for Spider-Man. Some people are saying they think it looks terrible. It would have been better if they just reskinned the advanced suit, so on and so forth. They don't like the whole aesthetic of kind of the Play-Doh-y kind of goopy design of the alien costume for Spider-Man. And to me, I personally have to absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, disagree. I think they nailed a lot about this costume to please both the classic fans, giving us elements like the actual logo on the chest being very, very reminiscent of the most classic iteration of the symbiote suit. So I love that detail. I love that the hands have the little arrows. Yes, they're not the squares that Spider-Man would usually have on this particular costume, but it's a bit of an homage to that, and I think that that's a really cool attention to detail as well. And personally for me, leaning into the concept that the suit is actually alive, that it's an alien being, is a really cool concept. I really like that that's the most recent and most current interpretation of the symbiote slash Venom storyline, because I feel like it gives more of an explanation to things like how the heck did Pete just grow all these extra limbs. I think that it rationalizes some of the gameplay mechanics with some actual sci-fi elements. And so does this mean that I believe that everyone who's criticizing the suit is absolutely positively wrong? No, I think you're still entitled to your opinion, just like I am entitled to mine. And I think we could have a healthy debate as to whether or not the suit looks cool. I also think we've seen very little of this suit, seeing it predominantly in only one type of lighting, which is kind of in a sun dusk or sundown situation. So I think it'll be interesting to see the suit in more varied lighting. I think when we saw it inside the Harlem Fish Market, I think it looked a lot more menacing and had a very different presence than what we saw out in the daytime. And so I think that it's a matter of, hey, let's just wait a little bit longer to see how it looks in other environments. And additionally to that, I think even if you are the most hardcore comic book purist, you have to admit that some of the cool homages they made to the classic suit here work very well. Next, let's talk about the water, or as I guess maybe we could call it like Puddlegate 2.0. For those of you that are probably scratching your heads right now saying like, what did he just say? Well, let's rewind a little bit and talk about Marvel's Spider-Man. Back when that game was releasing, there was a very weird controversy around this title, which I suppose tells you just how quality of a game it was if this was one of its main controversies. But it was around a reveal that happened between E3 2017 and E3 2018. In 2017, when they had originally shown the game and demoed it, we saw a lot of puddles in the Kingpin construction building. Fast forward 1 year later, the vast majority of those puddles were removed, and people were saying like, oh my goodness, look at this. This is a massive downgrade. They're trying not to overload the systems, and they lied to us about just how far they're going to go with the reflective surfaces and the ray tracing and the blah, 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 blah. At the end of the day, here's my opinion on it. If you play Marvel's Spider-Man, for 99% of the population, when you launch that game, you're going to be like, oh, wow, this is a very, very pretty and beautiful game. Does this mean that it is the prettiest looking game? Does this mean that it is the most graphically impressive from a fidelity standpoint game that I've ever seen in my entire life? No, of course not. I think art style plays a huge factor in how a game is interpreted. If we're looking at what will most likely be the game of the year for this year, which is Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, that game, from a graphical fidelity standpoint, does not look great, but its art style and its atmosphere and its music and just the overall feel of the game, put all of that aside and you have an absolute blast with the title. Which is why it's just so baffling to me when the discussion starts to get this weirdly minute about details that ultimately, the vast majority of the time, do not matter. Do you guys remember the promotions for the Guardians of the Galaxy video game and then launching it on your own console and saying, hold up, what happened here? None of the trailers made this game look this good. And then you're playing it with your own very eyes and looking at it with your own very eyes at your setup, and you're like, holy moly, this looks great. So that's point number one. We don't know what this will actually look like once we play this on our PlayStations. Second of all, I don't think that something like the water being perfectly precise is going to make or break the gaming experience for you. I think that criticizing elements like puddles, how many of them are, and how good the water looks is such a bizarrely weird conversation to have, because what significance does it even have to the enjoyment of either the story or the game as a whole? This is not an Aquaman video game where the water would be paramount. This is not Avatar: The Way of Water where the water would be paramount, and it's important to make sure that that element is precisely correct. We see that the water is obviously in the game. It will be involved in some of the scenes, clearly, but it is by no way, shape, or form something that will impact your enjoyment of this title at the end of the day. And if it does, I don't know what to tell you. I think that you would not have enjoyed this game no matter what, because when I was watching that gameplay trailer, at no point in time was I really paying attention to the water. What I was paying attention to were the really, really cool action sequences, the really cool moments, and that's really what was carrying it for me. And so is it invalid to bring up the water graphics in this particular gameplay trailer for this game and bring it up as though, hey, this is not the best water that we've ever seen? No, you're right. I suppose it isn't the best water we've ever seen. But my follow-up question would be a simple one, and that is, so what? Because I genuinely am trying to understand what is the argument that is being made here by the people that are bringing up this as a point. Is it a case of saying that, well, because the water doesn't look good, the game is no longer a AAA game? Is it a case of saying that because the water doesn't look perfect, it is somehow now a game that you are not going to play? It really seems like a baffling argument to me. I could be wrong about that, and if you're one of the people that feels very, very passionately about the water physics and the water graphics for this particular gameplay trailer, and you could articulate a more compelling and interesting point, please use the comment section down below, because I'm genuinely curious to hear a compelling argument around why this is an issue. And just one final point I want to make. Legitimately, I think that this tweet right here from John Linneman, aka John from Digital Foundry, who do very, very in-depth breakdowns of comparing frame rate and graphical fidelity of different games, but he went ahead and had this exchange on Twitter and posted about it, saying, "The water is ray traced. That's how rough water looks. Reflections are highly diffused. See what I mean?" And he basically put a side-by-side shot of a real photograph of New York on the right-hand side, and on the left-hand side, an image from the trailer. To which one of the people that seems to be very unhappy about the water graphics in this game said, "The one on the right looks rough." And John replies, "The one on the right is a photograph, not the game." Finally, I have been hearing people make the whole argument of, oh, this is going to be the same game again because we're once again in New York City, so what can we be excited about? Or the argument that Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom had to deal with, which was, hey, this is just a $70 DLC. Which to me is once again a bit of a silly argument, because I don't really know what you expect in terms of Spider-Man's story to be. I don't know why you would expect Spider-Man to be relocated outside of New York, especially when we haven't even gotten to play through all of New York, with some of the boroughs not being playable until supposedly this game, which will be exciting because it'll grow the map and make it even larger. But in addition to that, I feel like Spider-Man and New York City go hand in hand like peanut butter and jelly. It's one of those things that, yes, you can obviously take Spider-Man and bring him out into outer space, as has happened before in the comics plenty of times, but I feel like his stories work best in New York City itself. And to me, I have no problem whatsoever of them staying in the city itself and just simply expanding it and making more of the boroughs available to us. That way, it does feel like we get to explore at least some new areas. And so to summarize, you're probably thinking at this point in time that I believe Marvel's Spider-Man 2 is the greatest video game ever made and it cannot be critiqued. No, That is not what I'm saying. If this game launches and it has tons and tons of technical problems and it is very, very underwhelming, I will be the first one to rise up and tell you about it. I will say, hey, you know what? This is disappointing. This is a problem. Why did they do this? Why did they do that? So on and so forth. But I just feel like everything we've seen so far does not indicate that to be the case. I think some of what's happening here is the fact that there are some people that were underwhelmed by the PlayStation Showcase itself, and so because of that, they are lobbying some of that negativity onto this game as well, even though, in my opinion, this, along with things like Phantom Blade, were the standouts of that showcase. And I'm also not gonna lie, I think some of it is the fact that anytime that a game gets this much hype, just like Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, there's always going to be a portion of the population that decides to go against the grain and just point out things that are very, very minute problems, or might not even be problems when the full game releases. Again, I am all up for a healthy debate about this. If you have a compelling argument to be made, please use the comment section down below to voice your opinions. Please be respectful, both to the people that disagree with my opinion and agree with my opinion. Again, we can try to remain as civilized as possible in this discussion, even though I know gamers can get heated. But let me know your opinions and thoughts down in the comment section below. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? And why? Thanks all for watching today's video. Guys, if you want to see a breakdown of why the heck is Miles blue now, check out the video you're currently seeing on your screen. It is a really, really cool theory. Let me know if you agree with that one as well.